Steve. Thank you so much. Hi, Prakash. How are you?
Hi, Jeanette. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Are you feeling like a cow or a buffalo today?
A little of both, I think, probably. There's a little of both in my life.
Yeah, yeah, I think for all of us. We're super excited that you're here. Thank you so much. We want to hear your business story. And we also want to specifically talk about how businesses can use their digital presence to expand and grow, which is something you're enabling them to do on Nextdoor. So let's just jump right in. Nextdoor has 60 million users, probably more than that since we wrote this, in 12 countries. So tell us, just how did you find your first users and what did you learn from those very first customers that you were able to incorporate into the business as it grew?
Yeah, it's a great question. And thanks, Jeanette, again, for having me. I feel seen in this environment. I know this is a group of entrepreneurs and small business owners, and they're really the backbone of the US economy. So thank you all for everything that you're doing. When we started the company, we started on two very simple insights. The first was a Pew Research study that had come out in 2010 that said that 29% of Americans claim to know only some of their neighbors, which really implies few, but that 28% of Americans claim to not know a single neighbor by name. So we knew that there was a problem worthy of pursuit in this country, where we had this precipitous decline in social capital, the number of people we knew in our communities. And the second was that there wasn't a way, at least that we could see, for people to digitally connect. Despite being connected with friends and family all over the world, or your professional network, or even people with whom you share interests, but maybe didn't even know in the real world, we couldn't connect with the people right on the other side of the wall or right across the street from us. So we started because we saw this precipitous decline in social capital in our local communities. We felt like technology could play an important role in bringing neighbors together for everyday things like finding a babysitter or a plumber, to more critical things like banding together after a natural disaster. So in order to kind of validate our hypothesis that this would be an important product that people could use, we wanted to land a very early prototype in just one neighborhood, a neighborhood in which we thought we would have the best opportunity for success. So we got on the phone, we called our friends and family. We ended up finding a neighborhood right here in Menlo Park, California, right near Stanford University. It was a 90 household neighborhood. They were already using a listserv and a blog to stay connected in their community. So we knew that there was some opportunity for them to use a product that was a little more sophisticated. And within a week, we were able to get almost half of their neighborhood signed up on what was an early prototype of Nextdoor. They used it to organize their annual Halloween parade. They were using it to buy and sell things from one another and just staying informed about what was going on in the community. And so we knew with that one initial prototype and one initial community that we were onto something, and that sense of community that existed in that small neighborhood was something that we could probably scale out to hundreds of thousands of neighborhoods around the world. But we were still in a challenge because if you go back to that Pew Research study, most people don't know their neighbors, which means that they don't have electronic correspondence with them. They don't have their phone numbers or email addresses. And so how do you get the word out about a product if you can't connect one-to-one through those electronic channels? And so we had to do some very unusual things to market the product. In addition to calling friends and family and getting it landed in new neighborhoods, which really accounted for probably our first 100 to 150 neighborhoods, we needed a way for things to virally spread, for people to be able to get the word out to their neighbors, even if they didn't know them. And so we started to use mailed postcard invitations, literally postcards that we would drop in the mail and send on behalf of neighbors to addresses that were nearby to them. And so employing some kind of off the beaten path techniques, again, we're a tech company. If you had told me when we started this tech company that we'd be sending out paper mailed invitations to our product, I would have said you were crazy. But really thinking through, okay, what's the challenge at hand? Most people don't know their neighbors and don't have electronic correspondence with them. And then employing a solution that helps bridge that was really how we got up and running in the early days. And we're able to scale our platform mostly through word of mouth to where we are today, where 1 in 3 households in the United States uses our product. The last thing I'll say on this is that over time, this company has been in existence for about 10 years. The way that we've had to market has changed because, as we know, communities are becoming more urban and ubiquitous. There are more accessibility needs to folks that in the early days, we didn't think were probably our target customers. And as we become more and more ubiquitous, our purpose and mission is to cultivate a kinder world where everyone has a neighborhood they can rely on. We're really focused on that everyone word. making sure that we can get to every neighborhood in every geographic region in the world. And so we need a mix of qualitative and quantitative data to understand what's working and what's not working. And as we expand internationally, we need to think about what communities want and need from our platform, listen to those communities and evolve our platform to meet those needs. So I think things have changed really radically from those early days of getting our first customers to now in a world where we're trying to expand into new geographies and trying to get to penetration in more than half of the households here in the United States.
So it's very interesting that you had an idea of how you were going to market the product, and then you had to evolve, which I think is a great lesson. No matter what kind of business you own, you might have a plan, but you better be ready to deviate from it when necessary. So in addition to connecting neighbors, Nextdoor also connects those people with local businesses in their neighborhood. So can you talk about the importance of small business to your platform success and how that changed during the pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a slogan that we use inside of Nextdoor. It's kind of a rallying cry for small businesses, which is when local businesses thrive, neighborhoods thrive. We know that local businesses are often the cornerstone of thriving neighborhoods, and we connect everyone from either brick and mortar stores to just neighbors for hire, people like handymen and plumbers who live amongst us in our communities with their most valuable customers who are their neighbors. And so on Nextdoor, those local businesses really become trusted members of the neighborhood, and it's a way for them to develop loyal and long-term relationships. And so we did a recent study. We have a series of surveys that we publish called our Insight series. And the most recent one showed that neighbors have a renewed appreciation for their neighborhood, particularly in the pandemic, where we're all trapped in our homes, reliant on our local neighbors and businesses for everything that we need, from hand sanitizer to toilet paper to food. And so we know that the neighborhood has increased significance and importance, particularly in this time of the pandemic. And so 72% of respondents said that they've made it more of a priority to support local businesses. And 58% of respondents have a renewed appreciation for their neighborhood, and all believe that it'll continue going forward. So on Nextdoor, local businesses can create business pages, they can post messages out to the community, and they can reach the communities they serve to communicate any important information. There's no need to build a following like you need to do on other platforms. You have instant distribution based on the geography in which you choose to operate. So you're reaching the customers that are most likely to frequent your business. You can create those business pages, post and reach those communities. And given the circumstances of the pandemic, we know that the government can't meet all of the needs of the residents, which means that proximity is really critical. When we need that information and help, we can turn to our neighbors. We can also turn to local businesses. So I think the three most important things that we learned during the pandemic were, number one, businesses could use Nextdoor to just let neighbors know we're open for business. We haven't shut down, we're here. We've modified our store hours. We've modified things like takeout or delivery or curbside pickup options. And more importantly, in a time where there's reduced foot traffic to businesses, a lot of businesses are struggling just to stay afloat. We've offered businesses the opportunity to sell gift cards, which give them working capital to work with as people decide when they're going to come back and support those local businesses. So using a variety of different ways, we think that we've helped neighbors understand that businesses are still open. They can come to those businesses safely, then transact with them safely. And they can also support them in ways through things like gift cards that provide them some more working capital. So I think it's been really, really important. Small businesses have turned to Nextdoor to really stay afloat during this difficult time. And neighbors have come out in force to support their beloved small businesses. And I think that's the kind of economy and the virtuous cycle that we want to drive on Nextdoor.
Yeah. Before I ask you the next question, I just want to remind the audience that you can put your questions for Prakash in the chat window, and I will ask him some audience questions in a few minutes. So you're in a unique position, Prakash, because you guys are able to see how businesses succeed on your platform, based on how they engage with it. So as a more general learning for our audience, just what do you think a really successful digital presence on Nextdoor or off, beyond looks like for small businesses? Like, what are the most successful small businesses doing well in terms of their digital marketing?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, all businesses are looking for is increased awareness. They're trying to get people to try their products and services, to come in and visit their storefronts, and trying to get the word out about their businesses. And I think that is one way of looking at kind of a short-term need, which is, hey, if I look at this too narrowly, my predictive measures of success are really just going to be about those outcomes. Am I selling more products or more people visiting my business? But I actually think that there's a longer arc of a trajectory that could lead businesses to be more successful. And again, at Nextdoor, we believe that businesses are a critical part of the neighborhood. They're neighbors just like residents of the neighborhood are. And so for a platform like ours, it's really about speaking to the community and being a part of the community. So there are ways to achieve those transactional outcomes of more sales, more people coming into the business. People use things like our local deals product to target specific neighborhoods, offer coupons or deals that are loss leading strategies for people to come in, try the business, and then eventually convert into long-term customers. And so designing specific timely discounts and promotions for specific neighborhoods that can engage and motivate their best customers, those of them that are nearby and proximate. You can use neighborhood sponsorships to post advertisements to drive awareness, build reputation, and keep your business just top of mind. And with those sponsorships, they can distribute automated ad placements that regularly post into the newsfeed. And you can do that in targeted zip codes. So those are ways of just getting the word out and trying to drive more foot traffic into your businesses. Yeah. But besides that, I think there are other ways that are really, really important. It's about being part of the community and showing up as a voice in the community. And so that can be things like offering and organizing donation drives in the community. It can be offering advice and expertise, right? If you're a business, you're an entrepreneur. There may be other business owners that are thinking about starting their own business. How can you be part of those conversations and feel like you're a part of the neighborhood? You can do things like starting book exchanges or participating in other community events like neighborhood cleanups or spreading the word about your favorite local businesses. So I think beyond just the transactional components of trying to drive more people in, there are ways that you can show up and be part of the community and have a voice in the community. It's why, the local pizza restaurant sponsors Little League. And it's why, the local bookstore does neighborhood cleanups. It's those kinds of things that really make you a part of the community and make you feel a part of the community. And so in our platform, we think that those are important ways of really engaging with neighbors.
Yeah. So you also are the head of diversity and inclusion at Nextdoor. And I think, that's obviously a topic that we've been talking about all year. I think sometimes for small businesses, it's a little bit more difficult to figure out how to think about diversity and inclusion because they don't have one person dedicated to thinking about that day in and day out. So can you talk about how that's been important to your success and just more generally how you see that play out for businesses to be paying attention to making sure they have diverse teams?
Yeah, but first off, just to react to something you said, it's hard for companies at our size too to think about ways that we can be more inclusive and equitable and create a better sense of belonging. For a company like ours, we operate within the cultural zeitgeist. That is to say, we have a platform that reaches millions and millions of people all over the world. And for us to really show up in a way that is inclusive of all of those people and to make sure that they feel like they can be their authentic selves and feel a sense of belonging, we have to have a staff that really reflects that diversity, that reflects that myriad of lived experiences. And often when we talk about diversity, we talk about the things that are a little more easy to characterize, whether that's gender or whether that's race or ethnicity, the observable traits about people. But there's so much more that constitutes our own lived experience. Maybe we served in the military and we're veterans. Maybe our sexual orientation is different. Maybe our lived experience growing up in a rural community versus an urban community, or growing up affluent versus poor. These are all things that really shape the way that we experience the world. And so for us at Nextdoor, we have a principle of people first. We want to lead with empathy and transparency. There's a moral imperative around diversity and inclusion, and there's a business imperative around diversity and inclusion. The business imperative is becoming increasingly clear. McKinsey and Company put out a study in 2019. They found that companies in the top quartile for gender diversity on executive teams, they were 25% more likely to have above average profitability than companies in the fourth quartile. And that number is growing. That number was 21% in 2017 and 15% in 2014. So the business imperative is really, really clear. So then we come back to the moral imperative. And the moral imperative is, listen, having more diverse voices around the table makes our company more reflective of the customers that we wish to serve. And when we're debating in plain sight about different product features, different experiences, different ways that we market our products, we're getting the broadest range of possibilities of feedback. And that helps us build the most inclusive company that we can build. So for small business owners, diversity in the way that we think of diversity, our company is close to about 600 people. Diversity is a math problem. It's just how many employees do you have and what percentage of those employees come from different demographic backgrounds. The more interesting work that leads to those outcomes of diversity is really around inclusive practices and equitable practices. In DEIB, equity and inclusion, I think are the key cornerstones to any good diversity and inclusion program. Inclusivity is about making sure that people feel like they can be their authentic selves at work. And so for you as small business owners, what are the things that you can do to make people feel comfortable coming to your business or using your products and services? Do you offer different language choices for people who may not necessarily be native English speakers? Are you comfortable with people who have disabilities, for example? You know, these are different types of diversity and inclusive practices that we need to think about. And then on equity, it's really about fairness. In a company like ours, are we being fair in the way that we hire, that we promote people, that we pay people? Are we being fair in the way that we set up the rules of our platform so that people can participate in a way that makes them feel safe and belonging? And so whatever those principles are around equity and fairness, think about those for your business as well. Because if you get those things right, inclusion and equity, then that will create a sense of belonging that ultimately will result in a more diverse customer base and a broader audience for you to, market your products and services.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a really important way to think about it. Before we go to the audience Q&A, I just want to ask you, I know you guys are going to go public soon, and that's a dream, obviously, for many businesses. So can you just talk about that and kind of what kind of growth is next?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say too much because we're in the process of, setting up for our public offering. But obviously, as a company founder, it's a dream come true. And very rarely a company comes along that has the ability to literally change people's lives for the better. We talked about that deficit of social capital, this precipitous decline in our communities that we're trying to combat. And we know from research that when people do know one another and have that social capital in their communities, outcomes across the board get better. Crime rates drop, property values increase, education and test outcomes get better, and people in fact live longer in communities where they have the support of their neighbors. So our purpose and mission is very clear to us. And so when we go out to raise money in the public market, what we're trying to do is accelerate the growth of our platform, accelerate the reach, get to that purpose and mission more quickly. And so we're really excited to have a great partner on board with Khosla Ventures, helping us to raise that money on the public market. We know that the need for hyperlocal connection is real and lasting. COVID led to this structural change, but that's going to continue beyond COVID. We know that for certain. Our North Star is very clear and remains the same. And our priority is to give you more access to the value of your neighborhood. All of us, whether we know a single person or don't know or know everyone in our community, can actually get value out of a platform like Nextdoor because it's this hive mind of knowledge that lives latent in every community all over the world. And we're just helping people tap into that. And so the more people that use Nextdoor, the better it gets for everybody. And that's what our goal is by going public, we're raising money, we're raising the ability for us to, execute against our vision. And we're really excited about that. And I think, some of the things that you can look forward to, we want to enable neighbors to connect with more than one neighborhood. So if you've got an elderly parent that's living in another community, we want you to be able to keep eyes on what's going on in that community. If you have friends and family or a second home somewhere outside of your local region, we'd love for you to be able to follow what's going on there. We want neighbors to better connect with each other and with organizations. So being able to really go beyond just this idea that we all have one thing in common, which is the neighborhood in which we live, and to lodge specific preferences for your friends and your connections and the businesses that you love and follow. And then we want to make sure that, things that are happening on Nextdoor are easily discoverable, particularly things that have, public relevance. So things like business recommendations, right? You can find them on other platforms today. We want to be sure that your business recommendations that are hard earned on Nextdoor, those authentic recommendations from local residents, are things that can be discovered by people through search results on Google, for example, or can be shared on other platforms. So there's a lot that we're working on internally that are fundamental changes to our platform that hopefully will deliver a lot of value for our members, but more importantly, for people like you, small business owners, who are trying to get the word out and build your reputation inside of local communities.
Right. We only have a couple minutes left, and I want to get to a couple of audience questions. So the first is a very tactical one. This person's just asking, how do I put my business on Nextdoor? So do they just download the app and they can sign up there?
Yeah, you can just sign up right on the app itself or through our website. We have a site at businesses.nextdoor.com that is a microsite that describes all of the offerings for small businesses. So I would encourage you to check that out as well. But it's very, very simple. You get in, you sign up for your Nextdoor page, and then you can get up and running and post messages out to your community.
Okay, great. And then this person says, we're in a workforce shortage, which we all know, and they're having a hard time finding employees. Does Nextdoor have anything in place to help small businesses on Nextdoor recruit and hire employees?
We don't have a specific recruiting feature for job placement. But again, if you sign up and you set up a page on Nextdoor, you can post messages to the people who are most likely to respond to those job postings, which are neighbors right there in your community. So I think it's a great way for you to use the platform, is to just come on Nextdoor, set up your business page, and put out a message to your neighbors saying, hey, look, I'm looking for help. Over the future, it's definitely something that I'll take back to our product teams, because I think it would be a great feature to help people recruit for their local businesses.
Great. I have 1 minute left. So my last question for you in your last minute is, what is the biggest challenge you face as a business owner?
For us as a business owner, I think, coming back to that initial statistic of how few people know one another in their local neighborhood, that's the fundamental challenge and the opportunity that is Nextdoor. And so again, if you had told me when I was starting a tech company that I'd be sending postcard invitations out by mail in order to grow my business, I would have said, that's crazy. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But as the platform has come to scale, we're seeing new opportunities that help drive more word of mouth awareness. Things like being able to connect with your friends and family on a platform like Nextdoor that weren't necessarily immediately apparent to us in the early days. Those are ways that we're starting to overcome those challenges. So I would say, like most businesses, growth is the biggest challenge for us. It's one of those things that we have to work on every single day. And we're starting to break through in a way that is really meaningful, not just here in the United States, but all over the world. But that's the challenge, right? The challenge is we don't know our neighbors, and we're a neighborhood platform that's trying to connect neighbors. So, that will always be the challenge for us, whether it's here in the US or anywhere around the world.
Right. Great. Thank you so much. That is all we have time for. I want to say thank you so much, Prakash. It was a real pleasure. And I know our audience appreciates it too. You take care. And I'm